New York City is giving $4,000 to migrant families staying in shelters in an effort to move them into permanent housing. 65,000 migrants are currently in city shelters, and the city is paying $388 per day per migrant household. The city spent $5 billion on migrants in the past 2 years, so this program is meant to alleviate some of those costs by incentivizing migrants to move. The grant, worth up to $4,000, aims to cover moving expenses, security deposits, first and last month's rent, and essential household items. The money comes from what the city says is unused funds from their homeless budget. And if a migrant returns to a shelter, they won't be eligible for the grant a second time. So far, 150 families have benefited from the grant program. In the past 2 years, more than 200,000 migrants have arrived in New York City.
My name's Josh. I'm here to talk about the logistics of ending homelessness. Today's topic, the city of New York paying families $4,000 to leave the shelter. So I read this morning. The city of New York, they're paying migrant families up to $4,000 to leave the shelter and go into permanent housing. And this program is incredible, and here's why. Sheltering is the most expensive form of housing your city can pay for. And New York has a right to shelter law, which means it's costing them, and you the taxpayer, tons and tons of money. And this money, it seems perpetual and unending. So, for folks who balk at a $4,000 payment to get people out of shelter thinking it's expensive, think of it this way. Would you rather pay a one-time $4,000 to get someone into permanent housing and you never see them at the shelter again, or pay $6,000 a month for a family of 3 to remain in shelter? Even if you're heartless, you can say the math doesn't add up on one and let's go the other way, which is what they're doing. And more cities are going to have to do this. Homelessness is expensive, and the only solution that makes any sense is ending people's homelessness. This is a step in the right direction. New York, I am proud of you. I hope more and more cities follow suit. Thanks for taking the lead on this one.
All right, a new pilot program from the city awarding up to $4,000 grants to migrant families who exit the shelter system and find their own housing.
Fox 8's Jessica Formoso takes a closer look at how the program works and if it's working so far.
A shelter is an emergency solution that is intended for the short term. It is important that that short-term solution is safe and healthy, and that we are providing families with an opportunity to get back on their feet.
The New York City Department of Homeless Services is offering up to $4,000 to migrant families with children and pregnant women who are currently residing in a city shelter. It's called the Asylee Move Out Assistance Program, a pilot program that began last December, helping asylum seekers transition from a shelter to permanent housing. So far, 150 families have benefited from the program.
We've done 150 families starting about 7 months ago. I think we've had one person from a family, not even the whole family, come back. So that is, in my mind, a very strong success rate thus far.
The one-time grant is modeled after the enhanced one-shot deal program for those in the traditional homeless shelters, only to be used for first and last month's rent, security deposits, moving expenses, and household supplies.
It really is for documented expenses related to permanent housing. So that could be first and last month's rent. It could be moving expenses, household supplies, things that somebody who is brand new to the country, brand new to permanent housing might not have. But the shelter providers are really looking at documentation.
The money is coming from DHS' existing budget. Since the program is only a pilot, it is not offered at every migrant shelter, but only at 62 sites for now. The families themselves have to find housing, and once they do, they work with the not-for-profit providers operating at the shelters who help them with the process.
It makes financial sense because shelter is very expensive, and this is a targeted one-time payment.
It would be a great support to be able to have our own space, to be able to socialize directly with our families. The children suffer the most being bounced around, just no stability. In Midtown, I'm Jessica Formoso, Fox 5 News.
Inside the city of Chicago, there are two main migrant shelters, the Standard Club and the Chicago Inn. The Standard Club used to be a millionaire club where rich businessmen would meet, and due to lockdowns in 2020, it was forced to close and they sold the building for $9 million to a man named Bill. The other shelter, the Chicago Inn, was sold to that same man named Bill in 2021 for $13.5 million. When migrants began to come to Chicago, both buildings were converted to migrant shelters, and if each hotel is rented out at a rate of $200 per room, this man named Bill is making upwards of $90,000 a day, $630,000 a week, $2.5 million a month, and $30 million a year. That's not bad for buying both properties for $22.5 million. This is right next to the Courtyard Marriott, and to stay here at the Marriott with parking, it costs $260 a night. And then right next door is a shelter where everyone is staying, all the migrants. ¿Cuánto tiempo lleva aquí en este hotel?
7.
7 meses.
Sí.
¿Y cómo fue el tratamiento aquí en Chester?
Pues bien, porque por lo menos le dieron el apoyo a uno para salir adelante con una vivienda.
Ok. Y ahora está saliendo,
Sí.
¿correcto? Con todas sus
A
cosas.
la casa.
A una casa. Y
Sí. Bueno, y ahorita me voy, pues. Ya voy rápido.
And so now she's heading out. They just grabbed all her stuff. ¿Y el bebé fue nacido aquí?
Sí.
Sí. ¿Y el gobierno están dando como están prestando dinero para que pueda ir a una casa?
Sí.
¿Cuánto
a
es?
él.
¿Cuánto
No
es?
recuerdo la cantidad, pero me voy porque ya es tarde.
Yeah. Perfecto.
Gracias.
Muchas gracias. All right. They loaded her up, and just like that, she's off to another house. She said the government did help them find a new house, and she's going to move out of the shelter. She's been there for 7 months, and she did have that baby here in the United States, which means that baby did get citizenship inside the United States. Anchor baby. Maybe now it's going to be a lot easier for her to stay here. Now she has a house. That lady honestly worked the system here in the United States perfectly. She came here, was shipped to Chicago, got 7 months free rent here inside this hotel, had a baby. That baby at least makes her about $500 a month, and that baby gets citizenship. And now they're paying upwards to $1,500, and migrants are getting $15,000 a year in homes. That lady is a prime example of working the system perfectly to get everything for free and taking advantage of your money, haha, United States taxpayers.
I want to thank all the nonprofits, the faith groups, the community leaders, and other volunteers who will make sure that vulnerable immigrants have what they need to survive, whether it's food, warm clothing, shelter, medical care, right after their arrival.